Hello, Cleveland, and welcome back to another edition of the Dogland Podcast. Whew. If you're a Browns fan like me and Anthony, this has been a wild last couple days. Obviously free agency kicked into high gear, but the rumors, the stories, everything that's gone on, especially in more or less the last 24 hours of this recording. I mean, it's been something else. This is one of these times in Browns history we're going to be like in like 10 years from now, we're going to reflect back and be like, what the hell happened during that time? And it's something else, but we're going to break down what the Browns have done, what the Browns might do here as, the start of the new league year is happening. For those of you new to the podcast, I am Jackson McCurry, your co-host, and my other co-host is none other than Anthony Jokey. Anthony, it's been a wild 24 or so hours, man, but how are you?
I'm doing well. I want to ask you a question. There seems to be nothing going on, so why are we doing a podcast right
now? Yeah, I mean, there's really nothing going on at all. It's just we could be in a scenario here, maybe within the next 24 or 48 hours. We're recording this on early Wednesday afternoon, right before the new league year starts. And Anthony, we might be in a situation where, like I said, 24 or 48 hours, we might have a new quarterback. We might not have a quarterback at all. So,
it's going to happen about 30 minutes after we're done with this. That's just how it works.
Yeah, pretty much. It's definitely usually how it goes with us. We either record right before news starts or right after news happens. We usually catch it in time or don't catch it at all. So, but unfortunately, that's how it's been here since for the last 5 years.
I was gonna say, could it actually happen while we're recording and before we get to said topic, because that would be wonderful. But I highly doubt that.
Right. Yeah. It will not happen during the recording at all. That we should know that better than that by now. But yeah, let's talk about what the Browns have done, because I feel like we're gonna spend some time on what the Browns might do, and we'll save that for the end. But let's talk about what the Browns have done. The last time we recorded, Anthony, was I think Saturday night, right after the Amari Cooper trade. Obviously, we talked about that. Go listen to our last episode. But the Browns have been somewhat busy since the start of the legal tampering period. Right off the bat, the Browns let 3 players go, and they were all key parts of this team the last couple of seasons. On Wednesday morning, we'll start with that one because it's the freshest one. They announced that, well, they didn't announce, but, league reports are that they will cut Austin Hooper with a post-June 1st designation, which will not save them cap space now, even though some people are saying, oh, well, the Browns saved X amount of dollars. It's a post-June 1st cut, which means he's on the books until June 1st. Then he will automatically go off the books. Ask Jack Duffin to give me the correct financials of this, but the Browns will save $9.5 million, but they will take a dead cap of $3.75 million this year and $7.5 million next year. Hooper was obviously the marquee free agent signing for the Browns 2 years ago, the first major free agent signing of Andrew Berry's regime as Browns general manager. Anthony was lackluster. I mean, he did produce, just not as much as we thought he was when he was the big free agent signing a couple years ago. But we kind of knew that once David Njoku got the franchise tag a couple weeks ago, that Hooper probably wasn't in the long-term plans. There was reports that the Browns were going to keep him, but logistically, because they couldn't cut him before the new league year started to get that post-June 1st designation, it was just a matter of when was it going to happen, and obviously it happened Wednesday morning.
Yeah, it's not entirely surprising. I think we talked about when they talked about maybe keeping him, that I guess it depended on what they did with the rest of the receiver room. So after the Cooper trade and then obviously the franchise tag of Njoku, kind of figured that he was on his way out. So it's not surprising that he is. I was disappointed, I guess, from Hooper. I thought there would be more, but I think the step that Njoku has taken, and as well as Harrison Bryant too, they can't afford to tie up so much money there. And moving forward, I think this year showed me I would rather have Njoku over Hooper, and bringing in a couple more receivers. I think this offense will be fine passing wise.
Yeah, for sure. And then, Harrison Bryant's been solid. He's been as the tight end 3 the last 2 seasons. I expect him to potentially take a jump as the number 2 tight end in this offense. I heard Nathan Zagura and Bo Bishop on the way home talking about maybe a 1-year prove-it deal for O.J. Howard. I mean, he didn't pan out in Tampa. Obviously, the Browns do need a third tight end. Maybe give him the opportunity, or maybe they're ready to give Harrison Bryant the opportunity. They sign another veteran, potentially like a blocking tight end, or maybe they draft one. But I feel confident in Harrison Bryant, and like you, I feel confident in David Njoku as well. Let him be the tight end 1 that we all thought he's been able to be his first 5 seasons in the league, and now with the franchise tag and potentially a long-term deal down the road, and still only 25 years old, I think there's still plenty of potential in Njoku's game to break out and emerge as one of the top tight ends in the league.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot more than Njoku can do. There's a lot more that Brian can do, and I feel like now they'll probably draft one in a later round as to kind of fill the role that Harrison Bryant has been in the last couple of years. So you just kind of move him up the depth chart and then insert somebody else behind him. It's kind of a good strategy, I guess. Letting the higher price guy go. Inserting somebody you've been developing into that role, and then get another guy you can start to develop, and it's just a good way to build a team is to continuously do that at positions you're able to.
Without a doubt. Monday or Tuesday, the Browns. Well, we'll just throw them in together. Monday, the Browns did announce shortly after the legal tampering period started that they released Jarvis Landry. They tried to rework his deal, give him some kind of a mini extension, but the 2 sides couldn't agree. So they agreed to part ways with Landry. And then on Tuesday, they parted ways with center J.C. Tretter. Now, Tretter's been with the team since 2017, played all but 1 game. Very consistent, one of the underrated centers in the league, played through injuries, never missed a snap. Obviously the anchor of that offensive line with Batonio and Tretter, and obviously the other guys that have been there at the tackle positions. And of course, we talked about Jarvis Landry on the last episode. They did let him go out and try to get a trade, but it just never seemed likely with his cap hit. But obviously 2 of the Browns' longtime leaders on the offensive side of the ball are now gone. Obviously the Browns added Amari Cooper. Hopefully he can take some kind of a leadership role with that young wide receiver room. And then obviously with JC Tretter going, Anthony, it's Nick Harris's time potentially as the center. He obviously flashed in that game against Green Bay last year, but the Browns are definitely going forward without 2 of their cornerstones on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and if it is, excuse me, if it is Nick Harris, you do have Batonio to his left and Wyatt Teller to his right. So at least you have these 2 guys next to him that will be able to help him out. If they do keep their first round pick, I can definitely see Lindenbaum from Iowa as a possibility. I know he's the excuse me, the top rated center in the draft. So there's certainly 2 options there, but they lose Tretter, and I know it's a business, but it's tough to see somebody like that go who's done so much for the offensive line, so much for the Browns, the community, etc. Same thing for Jarvis Landry too. This Hard Knock speech has been going around again since he was released, and he did so much for this wide receiver room. You saw quite a few posts from the guys, past and present teammates, talking about him and what he did in that locker room. It's tough to lose a guy like that, but unfortunately, it is a business, and they certainly we're going to keep him at that cap number, and I was ultimately hoping that they would be able to restructure it in a way that it would work, but unfortunately not. So, um, losing these two guys on the offensive side of the ball, two leaders, is going to be tough to replace.
Without a doubt, but I mean, you have Nick Chubb, you have Njoku, you have Batonio, Treader, or Teller. God, I keep doing that. I keep confusing Treader and Teller for some reason, but you have guys that have been there a long time, guys that can carry the torch in terms of leadership. I don't expect things to crumble in that locker room just because some of these guys have walked away, because you have guys that have been in there a long time, guys that, learned how to be a leader from those guys. So I don't expect anything to really change. Hopefully not. We will see as time goes on, but those guys will definitely be missed. And I thought Andrew Berry, the statements he put out about both Landry and Treader were both very good, and the tributes that the Browns gave them on social media was awesome as well. Obviously the fans are going to miss them, but I think the organizations will miss them as well. Let's get to the moves that the Browns have made in free agency since the legal tampering period started on Monday. There've only been a couple, but they're in positions that the Browns needed to address. The first one, Taven Bryant, defensive tackle, formerly the Jacksonville Jaguars, former first-round pick as well. It's a one-year deal worth, I think it was $5 million. But the cap hits around $3.9 million according to Over the Cap. This guy, obviously former first-round picks, been disruptive in the middle during his first several seasons in the league. Explosive athlete for a guy his size, 6'5", 291 pounds. The Browns are taking a chance on him, obviously. He kind of flamed out as a late first-round pick in Jacksonville. They declined the fifth-year option, letting him become a free agent. But, Anthony, the Browns needed to address the defensive tackle room. They're taking a chance on Brian. Maybe it works out, and the Browns could maybe get him on the cheap in some kind of extension. But if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. It's a low-risk, high-reward situation for the Browns at a position they desperately needed to add some bodies to.
Yeah, it's the same. I guess you could say it's the same approach they took last offseason in addressing defensive tackle. So, look, if he does work out, that's great. If he doesn't, then, there's certainly going to be other guys that they bring in that are going to be in the fold, because they're lacking the amount of guys right now to fill that defensive tackle spot. So, whether it's still a free agency, whether it's still a draft, there's going to be a lot more that they're going to add. But, hopefully, he could bring something to the table. Playing next to somebody like Myles Garrett could help him. But we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, there's a video floating around where he destroys Quentin Nelson, who some will say
I saw that one.
that was unbelievable. Obviously, like I said, he's an explosive athlete. He did have some character concerns coming out of Florida. No hiccups in the NFL as far as I've been able to look. But, yeah, low-risk, high-reward situation. I don't expect this to be the only signing on the defensive tackle position that the Browns will make this offseason. But we'll see how Bryant pans out. Tuesday morning, the Browns did make a trade with the New England Patriots, a rare player-for-player trade, but I think this will benefit both sides. They shipped out linebacker Mack Wilson to New England for edge rusher Chase Winovich, who, the local media is saying, oh, former Michigan grad, instead of just saying former New England Patriot, because they have to, make us realize he went to Michigan. A lot of us know he went to Michigan, but Winovich, solid edge rusher in his role the first couple of years in New England, 5.5 sacks each year. I think they said his pass rush percentage rate was like 12 or win rate was 12%. It was a pretty high number in that second season in 2020. 2021 was a down year for him, dealing with injuries, and then his playing time cut significantly, went from 593 snaps in 2020 to just 112 in 2021. I look at him more as an edge depth guy, because right now you look at the Browns roster, it's Myles Garrett, Porter Gustin, and Curtis Weaver. That's all they got. Obviously, this is a room they need to address big time in free agency and the draft. There's rumors about the Browns being in on Von Miller, but it looks like right now he's going back to Los Angeles. We'll see what happens there. But getting Winovich in here, he could be maybe fill that Takk McKinley role of some sorts. But the Browns taking a chance on Winovich, obviously moving on from Mack Wilson, who his salary was going up, and being the fourth or fifth linebacker, we know the Browns don't pay for depth. So he goes to New England, where Belichick will love him because Mack Wilson balled out on special teams last year, and that's something Belichick absolutely loves out of his guys. So it could be a win-win for both sides.
Yeah, I think so. You're getting a position that's more valuable back in the trade, but I feel like there's certainly a lot that Winovich has to work on and do better. He has to revert back to his first couple years. Maybe working with a guy like Miles will help him in that aspect. Wilson, who, like you mentioned, balled down on special teams last year. Those are the kind of guys you like to have, but at his salary, it was kind of expected that they would move on. So, look, I can't say I'm excited for Winovich, but if it's just a depth guy who can come in and give you so many snaps a game to give Miles a rest, that's perfectly fine. I'm not expecting him to be, the answer on the other side for Miles, but there's certainly still plenty more they have to address there.
Yeah, for sure. The one big statistic that I look at on PFF for edge rushers is pressures. In 2020, that year, he had 5.5 sacks. He had 47 pressures, which I think was top 5 in the league. So he knows how to get after the quarterback for sure. Who knows? Maybe he'll learn some more things on how to utilize his game from Myles Garrett and whoever else they add in the offseason. Was it late Tuesday night? Amidst the drama that we'll get to, the Browns agreed to terms with former Bears return specialist / wide receiver Jakeem Grant. It was a 3-year deal. I think it was around $14 million. Don't know the details of the contract yet, but Jakeem Grant, last 2 years, second team All-Pro as a punt returner, and he went to the Pro Bowl last year, averaged, I think, around 12 yards per punt return, including he had a 97-yard punt return. Anthony, we know the return game hasn't been the same since Josh Cribbs. We had Travis Benjamin for a little bit. Obviously, the return game is phased out a little more, especially on kickoffs, but the Browns' special teams was awful last year, even though beginning of the year, Demetric Felton was showing some flashes as a return man till he had a couple fumbles late in the season, but the Browns solidified that by picking up Grant. He also he's a burner, 4.3 speed. There's a clip floating around from his Miami days where he doesn't have the most consistent hands, but that speed and whoever's going to be the quarterback, if the Browns want to spread or open up this offense a little more, you have Amari Cooper on one side who has some speed. If you put Jakeem Grant in the slot, you give him the ball and you get him in open space, he could turn what could be a 10 to 15 yard catch into maybe a 50, 60 yard touchdown. So definitely a guy that they needed on special teams, but could provide some depth into that wide receiver room as well.
Yeah, watching some of those clips, it might be difficult to get the ball in his hands, but once the ball is in his hands, he certainly knows what to do with it. He's very quick, very explosive. It's just interesting to have kind of two guys now like that with him and Anthony Schwartz, on the roster now. So I feel like hopefully he's mainly the punt returner, but however they draw him up in the offense, they can get creative, I think. There were a few plays that the Bears ran last year that floating around highlight-wise that were creative ways to get him the football, just get the ball in his hands without actually throwing it to him. That might be the best route to go. So, look, if you could find these explosive guys who can kind of break the game, whether it's in the return game or whether it's on offense, you love to have them. 3 years, $13 million is not an expensive deal, but you hope that they're able to include him very quickly here.
Yeah, his best season as a wide receiver was 2020 in Miami. He had 36 catches for 373 yards and a touchdown. Last year, um, with the Bears, he had 9 catches for 139 yards with 2 touchdowns. He also had 5 carries for 33 yards. We've seen, Deebo Samuel become that dual threat as a receiver and a running back. Not saying Jakeem Grant is the next Deebo Samuel, but maybe, as teams like to copycat around the league. I'm sure Kevin Stefanski and Alex Van Pelt were watching what San Fran was doing with Deebo Samuel, and maybe they incorporate some kind of package with whether it's Anthony Schwartz or Jakeem Grant to use them in that Deebo Samuel type package.
Yeah, when you have a guy with speed like that, you want to find ways to get them to football. So with Grant and Schwartz, if you can get them to football in open space, good things are going to happen for your football team.
And I love this on a side note. Jakeem Grant's nickname is Mighty Mouse, which I absolutely love. So,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've heard that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's on his Pro Football Reference page. Hopefully, it's real because sometimes these, like Baseball Reference, Basketball Reference, Pro Football Reference, these guys have nicknames, and I don't know if there's any validity to it. So, hopefully, one of our friends in the Cleveland media can confirm or deny that that's his nickname.
Well, if it is, the T-shirt companies in Cleveland are already starting to design them.
Yep, GV Artwork. Get to work on a Mighty Mouse T-shirt with Jakeem Grant. I love that. Although I'm sure there's copyright issues they'd have to clear first because obviously Mighty Mouse is a cartoon character. So, but that'd be sweet. All right, Anthony. We have been kind of avoiding this the last few days, but obviously this is Browns news. We have to talk about it. I think it was because Friday night was the first time that the Browns were connected to Deshaun Watson. We didn't know the validity of it. We didn't know the seriousness of it. But as the weekend went along, it became more and more real that the Browns were seriously interested in him. And Tuesday, the Browns did meet with him in Houston because Deshaun Watson obviously has a no trade clause. The Carolina Panthers, the New Orleans Saints, the Browns are interested. They've all submitted trade proposals to the Texans to get an idea of what the trade package would be. The Atlanta Falcons were meeting with him as we are recording, and we don't know yet what way is leaning. There's rumors that the Browns are the front runners. The perception is the Saints are the front runners. Carolina's been after him for over a year. Atlanta's now entered the race. Obviously, Deshaun Watson is from Georgia. If we get Deshaun Watson, Anthony, I think at some point we will discuss him as the person. But just briefly, the Browns, we know, we're looking to upgrade the quarterback position potentially this offseason. If they get Deshaun Watson, talking about the football player alone, do you think the Browns, A, upgraded, and B, does he make the football team better?
That's a tough question. Because there's still so much that's yet to be decided with him. If they do bring in Watson, how long of a suspension is he going to have potentially from everything that's gone on? If that's the case, if you're without him for the first, I don't know, 6 to 8 games of the season, if not longer, what are you going to do? Are you going to, run your backup quarterback out there, whoever that might be, for those 8 games? And if you're going to do that, why didn't you do that last year when Baker was hurt? That's besides the point. He hasn't played in a year. You have to wonder, how he is. There's a lot of questions, and it's on the other side of it, if you go back with Baker, there's still a lot of questions too. So either way, whether it's Baker, whether it's Deshaun, there are a lot of questions that have to be answered still at the quarterback position. And when we drafted Baker 4 years ago now, 5 years ago now, you thought that those questions would be answered relatively quickly. And I guess the fact that you're still asking those questions, Jack, kind of gives you an answer about who and what Baker Mayfield is. over the years, we've had some really, really bad quarterback play here, like really bad. And, that's why we've gone through them so much, and why they, there's that jersey with all those listed quarterbacks on there. But he came here, started winning. We went to the playoffs, beat Pittsburgh. We were very close to going to the AFC Championship game. But if all Baker is an average NFL quarterback, or even above average, you can't let him and what he's done here over the last 4 years, and the way things have changed from the previous years before he got here. You can't let, I guess, that rise from being really bad to average or above average prevent you from trying to get better at that position. So while it may be a tough call, and while Baker has done so many things to raise this franchise and kind of, make things better over the last 4 years, if there's somebody else out there who can make this thing even better and kind of go, I'm not saying like this is the exact comparison, but the Rams were not sold on Jared Goff, and they quickly had buyer's remorse when they signed him to that extension. You don't want that to happen here with Baker Mayfield. So they went out, they got Matthew Stafford, and they won a Super Bowl. I'm not saying that's going to be the exact thing that happened, but they drafted Goff. He was the number 1 overall, right, in that draft?
Yeah.
They drafted him number 1 overall. He did well.
He took them to the Super Bowl.
He took them to the Super Bowl. But the Rams were not afraid to go and get somebody better, and they won a Super Bowl. That's kind of how I look at this. For all the good that Baker has done for this franchise, if they can go out there and get somebody better, and we kind of talked about it with, like, could it be Russell Wilson? Could it be Aaron Rodgers? We kind of know how those stories have played out. But if they can go out there and get somebody better and improve their chances of winning a Super Bowl, then you have to go and do that. Like the general manager and everybody in the front office aren't doing their jobs if they're not exploring every avenue 1 through 53 to get better as a football team. And there's only a handful of quarterbacks in the NFL that you can look at and say, I don't need to improve that spot. There's so many mid-tier guys to where if you can go and get somebody who is better, you try and do that. So the Browns are just kind of doing their homework, and hopefully it doesn't completely backfire in their face down the road. But you have to not let the fear of being average prevent you from being great. And I saw that quote somebody posted, I think it was a Rockefeller quote. So, you can't let that fear of improvement from letting you go and do something.
For sure. I mean, regardless of the stuff about Deshaun Watson, like I said, if he comes to the Browns, we will sit down here and we will talk about it, because I don't agree with acquiring Deshaun Watson, the person, right now. I feel very uneasy when people ask me about it because of the situation that's still ongoing with that. Yes, he wasn't charged criminally, but the allegations are severe. It's uneasy to talk about. Getting Deshaun Watson, the football player, or do you think it's an upgrade over Baker Mayfield? We'll get to Baker here in a minute, but I appreciate the Browns going out and looking for any potential upgrades at each position. Like you said, if Andrew Berry wasn't doing that, I would question him being the general manager of the Browns if he wasn't doing his job. Obviously, this comes not just from Berry, but from the owners. If Jimmy and Dee Haslam signed off on this, obviously they trust the knowledge that they have on the situation, the information they've been able to obtain on this situation, because I don't think something this severe, if they didn't approve it, Berry and company wouldn't be going after it. Do I think the Browns have a legitimate shot at this? Yes, obviously, because A, they submitted a trade package to Houston that was acceptable, and B, the fact that Deshaun Watson was willing to sit down with the Browns means I'm willing to listen to what you have to say. Adam Schefter said that the Browns blew Deshaun Watson and his teams away by their pitch, their so-and-so recruiting of him, to where it sounds like we may have a chance we might even be the front runner. Yeah, we're going to have to give up a lot to get him. But like you said, case in point with the Rams, Jared Goff took them to the Super Bowl and they didn't win it, but they felt like they could make an upgrade, and they did, getting Matthew Stafford, and lo and behold, a year later, they win the Super Bowl. If you don't have a franchise quarterback, you have to search every window to do so. And, the Browns were linked to all these teams. I mean, we've been talking about it for the last 3 months, really, about potentially getting Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, even though we knew we were long shots. We talked about Kirk Cousins, we talked about Derek Carr. We always said if the Deshaun Watson stuff becomes clearer, that maybe the Browns do and go pursue it. Here's where they are, and they're getting it. It has gotten a little clearer. The allegations are still severe. The civil stuff is still ongoing, but the Browns obviously feel comfortable enough to deal with those ramifications to look at bringing him in, because they think that they're a quarterback away, and the current quarterback they have isn't going to get them where they want to go. So they're going to go try to upgrade that position. But now, obviously, Anthony, to turn this, Baker Mayfield, who is still on the roster, obviously is going into his 5th year, doesn't seem like he's very happy that the Browns, are looking to upgrade the position, even though, according to NFL Network, the Browns told their representatives that they would be doing due diligence to look at the quarterbacks potentially available that they think could be an upgrade. But Baker's clearly not happy, and that's why Tuesday night, when pretty sure the Browns were on their way back from Houston, he posts what looks like a goodbye letter to the city of Cleveland on social media. And now there's reports that he could be traded. He prefers to go to Indianapolis. I know Seattle was obviously mentioned as a potential destination. But now, even if Deshaun Watson doesn't want to come to Cleveland, the Browns could be sitting here in the next 48, 72 hours with no quarterback, because Baker Mayfield sounds like he wants to be moved and exit Cleveland.
Yeah, that would be the disaster in all this, right? You strike out on Deshaun Watson, and then the guy who you're trying to replace doesn't want to be here because you were trying to replace him. That would just be a nightmare. Now, granted, there are other guys available to be had in a trade other than Deshaun Watson still. And some of it depends on where Deshaun Watson goes. Because apparently, Houston doesn't have interest in taking Baker Mayfield back in a potential trade for Watson. They're happy, I guess, to go into the season with David Mills. So, so if he goes to Atlanta, maybe Matt Ryan is a possibility. Jimmy G is still out there. So there's certainly other options that are possible for the Browns at quarterback if both of this, if all this doesn't go their way and they lose out on Watson, and then Baker doesn't want to be here.
And if that happens, people have talked about Derek Carr, but based on the moves they're making while we're recording, they just signed Chandler Jones after this recording, and they traded Yannick Ngakoue to the Colts for cornerback Rock Ya-Sin. Derek Carr's off the table. Kirk Cousins is now off the table because he signed an extension. There's the Matt Ryan rumors. Obviously, especially if Deshaun Watson decides to go to the Atlanta Falcons, but even though they never sent the paperwork in to restructure his contract, it would still be a significant dead cap hit to the Atlanta Falcons to trade Matt Ryan. So I don't know how feasible that is. The Browns were looking at potentially trading for Jimmy Garoppolo, signing Jameis Winston or Marcus Mariota, or Ryan Fitzpatrick. There's another name out there in free agency. We'll see what happens. Obviously, Garoppolo wouldn't be bad, but that becomes a lateral move. But at this point, Anthony, if Baker Mayfield is wanting out, if the Browns are clearly moving on, we might be in a situation where we take Garoppolo for a year or two. We sign Baker, or we sign Jameis or Mariota to a 1-year deal. But we're looking at a situation, Anthony, where we didn't expect to be in this a year ago, but the Browns might be looking for a quarterback in 2023 in the draft.
Yeah, they might be. There's certainly some guys that are going to be there. Young and Stroud first come to mind. So, there's certainly an option there. If they do go to rookie quarterback route, that obviously allows you to do some other things, with your roster too. As you've seen, the Chargers just kind of go all out crazy this offseason, improving their defense and whatnot. So, there's certainly, like I said, there's a lot of questions that still have to be answered. And, obviously these answers are going to come here rather quickly, I feel, in the next 24 hours, probably within the hour after we're done with this, just because it's how it goes. But, if we're back to square one, I guess then we're back to square one. But at least, there are still quarterbacks out there that they could bring in on like a 1-year thing. Or you go out there, Jack, and next year your quarterback's Case Keenum. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, you're probably drafting in the top 5. So there's that option too.
Yeah, I got sidetracked there because Ken Carman had tweeted. He said, gut feeling is that it'll be the Browns. And he goes, now you could go 2 ways with that. Number 1, because I got a big gut. And he goes, number 2, my gut clearly lies to me often. And then he goes back and he says, to be more clear, my gut feeling is that Watson will choose the Browns. I have zero intel other than my gut feeling. Now, he says he has zero intel, but we know Ken works for the Browns radio network. And obviously 92.3 is home of the Browns. He worked for Fox 8 too. It's just, this is going to be very major if this does go down for more than a few obvious reasons. But yeah, it's just, I don't know how to process it. Like I said, I feel uneasy about it. I feel uneasy that it got to this point with Baker Mayfield. I think there's a lot more that we could say, but that's a whole nother episode. And maybe if something happens, whether he's traded, whether he's not and has to come back, there's a lot to say about Baker Mayfield. But I just think we need to wait and see how this all plays out first, Anthony.
Yeah, if he gets traded, if they bring in Deshaun Watson, if they bring back somebody else, we have probably about 10 podcasts to do in a row about a whole series, I guess, about the quarterback position. So I guess, this time of year in the NFL is crazy. And, last year it was relatively quiet for the Browns, I guess you could say. But this year it's certainly making up for that, I guess.
Oh, for sure, without a doubt. Before we ramp up, because just kind of want to get off that subject right now because it is a lot to swallow. But big news. ESPN made it official on Wednesday, Anthony, that Joe Buck and Troy Aikman leaving Fox Sports, coming to ESPN to become the voices of Monday Night Football. Obviously, they've been together 20 years as a duo with Fox, and they jump over to Monday Night Football. Obviously, there's been a big shakeup in the announcing for the NFL. Kirk Herbstreit going to Amazon to do their games on Thursday night. Rumor is Al Michaels is going to be joining him. Nothing's official yet, but Buck and Aikman, who have been the voices of Fox Sports in the NFL for the last 20 years after Summerall and Madden, are now the voices of Monday Night Football, and this is big.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that both these guys went to ESPN. I know ESPN is looking for a big splash after they kind of changed their booth over the last couple of years, and for Buck and Aikman to go to ESPN is pretty significant. You have to wonder what Fox is going to do. I would imagine that what's his name? I can't. It's blanking on me right now. From Fox, the excitable guy. Why can't I think of his name? I feel so embarrassed. I can't think of his name. The JT Barrett.
Gus Johnson. I'm sorry.
I don't know why I blanked on his name, but I
don't know why I was too.
I would imagine that he's probably going to step into that role for Fox.
Well, there was the rumors about Sean Payton.
Yeah, well, you still need a main guy to go over, so I would imagine that he would be up for it. But for ESPN to get these two guys, it's very significant, and you have to wonder what other moves are going to happen. But for Fox and Buck to go to ESPN, that's pretty exciting for Monday Night Football.
Yeah, for sure. I'm anxious to see if Al Michaels is really making the jump from NBC to Amazon Prime to join Kirk Herbstreit. Would be a good duo. Obviously, NBC can replace Al Michaels with Mike Tirico, who's obviously been waiting in the wings for this chance to call Sunday Night Football. So, obviously, the voices are definitely changing for our viewing pleasure on Sundays.
Yeah,
and Mondays.
And Thursdays. I saw that Kirk is still going to do college football on Saturday nights as well while working for Amazon. So, for him to do those 2 primetime games a week, that's going to be pretty fun.
For sure. And as we're wrapping up, Jake Trotter of ESPN just reported that Rashard Higgins has agreed to a 1-year deal with the Carolina Panthers.
All right, then.
Godspeed, Hollywood. Thank you for your, 5 years, 6 years with the Browns.
Hey, he's probably been the longest tenured wide receiver they've had in a while, huh? If you think about it.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because, with him starting out on the practice squad and whatnot, and then finding some rhythm with Baker over the last 4 years. Yeah, he's definitely been here a minute.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of expected he wasn't coming back, but now he's got a new home, and he goes to Carolina and maybe having a new quarterback in due time.
Yeah, there's certainly a few options, I guess, for Carolina quarterback-wise that they could go after.
Absolutely. As we wrap things up, you guys can follow Anthony on Twitter at Anthony Joki. It's Joki. You can follow me on Twitter at Jack McCurry08 and the Dogland at the Dogland, as well as thedogland.com. Until next time, Browns fans, as we get on out of here, as always, go Browns.